You are warm right now. You have not thought about it once today because you have never had to. The temperature around you is controlled by machines you do not think about, powered by systems you did not build, keeping your body in a narrow band of comfort that it almost never has to leave. Step outside that band for even a few hours without protection and your body begins to die. This is the thing we have forgotten. The human body is a tropical animal. It evolved in the warmth of Africa, built for heat, designed for a climate where cold was rarely the problem. And then humans did something that made no sense at all. They walked directly into the cold, not away from it, into Ice Age Europe, into the frozen north, into some of the coldest, harshest, most lethal environments this planet has ever produced. The question is not just how they survived it. The question is why a warm weather animal with no fur, no natural insulation, and a body that starts to fail the moment its core temperature drops a few degrees, chose to live in places that should have killed it. And the answer to that question is the story of how we became the most adaptable species on Earth. Start with the body, because the body is where the danger lives. The human body must maintain a core temperature of roughly 37 degrees Celsius. Not approximately, precisely. The chemistry of life, the enzymes and reactions that keep you alive, only function within a narrow temperature range, and the body will do almost anything to defend it. When you get cold, the body's first response is to shut down blood flow to the skin and the extremities, pulling warmth inward to protect the vital organs. This is why your fingers and toes go numb first. The body is sacrificing them deliberately to keep the heart and brain warm. If the cold continues, you begin to shiver, which is the muscles generating heat through rapid involuntary contraction. Shivering can increase heat production dramatically, but it burns through energy at a punishing rate, which means it can only be sustained as long as the body has fuel to burn. And if the cold wins, if the core temperature drops far enough, the systems begin to fail. Judgment goes first, then coordination, then consciousness. Hypothermia does not feel like dying. In its final stages, it often feels like warmth, like peace, like the urge to lie down and rest. The body's last act is to lie to you. This is the enemy ancient humans walked toward. Not an inconvenience, a patient, invisible killer that turned the body's own survival systems against it. And here is what makes the human story so strange. We are, by any reasonable measure, terribly equipped for cold. We have no fur. Our body hair is a useless remnant, incapable of providing meaningful insulation. We have a thin layer of fat compared to animals genuinely adapted to cold environments. Our extremities are long and exposed. A human dropped naked into a cold environment is one of the least survivable large mammals you could choose. And yet, humans colonized the coldest inhabited places on Earth, thrived through ice ages, and spread into environments that seals and polar bears are built for, and humans are emphatically not. We did this not by changing our bodies, which evolution is far too slow to have accomplished in the time available, but by changing everything around our bodies. We did it with technology, knowledge, and cooperation. We did it with our minds. The first and most obvious weapon was fire. But fire in the cold is more complicated than it sounds. Fire provides warmth, but only in a small radius, and only as long as it is fed. In a genuinely cold environment, a fire is not a solution on its own. It is one component of a system. The heat of a fire radiates outward and dissipates quickly into cold air, which means a human relying on fire alone in extreme cold is warm on one side and freezing on the other, and dead the moment the fuel runs out or the weather turns. Fire had to be combined with shelter to trap and hold the heat it produced, and with insulation worn on the body to retain warmth when away from the fire entirely. Ancient humans in cold climates understood fire not as a source of warmth by itself, but as the heart of a larger system of heat management that included what they wore, where they slept, and how they built the spaces they lived in. Which brings us to the single most important cold weather technology humans ever developed: clothing. Not clothing as decoration or modesty, but clothing as survival equipment, as a portable microclimate that let a tropical animal carry a piece of warmth with it into the ice. And the invention of real cold weather clothing was far more sophisticated than most people imagine. It was not enough to drape an animal skin over your shoulders. Effective cold-weather clothing required tailoring, fitted garments that trapped a layer of warm air against the body while sealing out wind and moisture. It required layering, multiple garments working together, an inner layer against the skin and an outer layer against the elements. It required the ability to sew, to join pieces of hide into shapes that fit the human body and closed off the gaps where heat escapes. And we can actually date when this happened through one of the strangest pieces of evidence in all of archaeology. Lice, human body lice, which live in clothing rather than on the body, evolved as a separate species from head lice at the point when humans began wearing fitted clothing regularly. When geneticists dated that evolutionary split, they found that humans have been wearing real clothing for at least 100,000 years, possibly considerably longer. The needle followed. Bone needles with tiny drilled eyes, delicate enough to sew fitted garments, appear in the archaeological record going back more than 40,000 years. These needles were not casual tools. They were precision instruments, and the ability to make and use them was, quite literally, the difference between living and dying in the cold. Consider what a fully clothed Ice Age human actually represented. Layers of tailored hide and fur, sewn to fit, sealing warmth against the body, footwear to protect the feet from frostbite, head coverings to prevent heat loss from the scalp, sometimes multiple layers of different materials chosen for different properties, an inner layer for warmth, an outer layer for wind resistance. This was not primitive, this was engineering, refined over tens of thousands of years, transmitted from generation to generation, allowing a warm-weather animal to walk across frozen landscapes that its naked body could not have survived for a single night. The clothing was the technology that unlocked the planet. Without it, humans would have remained confined to the warm regions their bodies were built for. With it, they went everywhere. Then there is the matter of fat, both on the body and in the diet. In cold environments, food is not just fuel. It is heat. The body generates warmth by burning energy, which means that surviving the cold requires eating far more than surviving in the warmth does. Cold-adapted human populations developed diets extraordinarily high in fat and protein, because fat is the most energy-dense fuel available, and the body burning fat in the cold is the body keeping itself alive. The traditional diet of Arctic peoples, built almost entirely around fatty meat and fish, was not a limitation imposed by a harsh environment. It was a precise solution to the problem of generating enough internal heat to survive. Every calorie of fat consumed was a calorie the body could burn to hold off the cold. And beyond diet, the human body itself has a remarkable cold weather tool that most people have never heard of. Brown fat, a special type of fat tissue that generates heat directly rather than storing energy. Infants have significant amounts of it. Adults regularly exposed to cold develop more of it. It is a biological furnace, and it is one of the ways the human body adapts within a single lifetime to the demands of a cold environment. But the deepest survival tool of all was not fire or clothing or fat. It was other people. Cold is an enemy that groups defeat far more effectively than individuals. Shared body heat is real and significant. Humans sleeping together in a shelter, packed close, generate and retain warmth collectively in a way that an individual alone cannot. The person in the middle of a group of sleeping humans is dramatically warmer than the person on the edge, and cold weather sleeping arrangements were communal, dense, and pragmatic, because warmth was survival, and privacy was a luxury the cold did not permit. Beyond shared heat, the group provided the division of labor that cold survival demanded. Someone gathered fuel, someone maintained the fire, someone prepared the hides and sewed the clothing, someone hunted the fatty animals whose meat and fur were the raw materials of survival. No individual could do all of this alone, especially in an environment where a single mistake, a soaked garment, an extinguished fire, a night caught in the open, meant death. The cold forced humans to cooperate at a level that shaped the species. The deep human need to belong to a group, to not be cast out, to maintain the bonds that connect us to others, was forged in part by environments where being alone simply meant freezing to death. There is a knowledge dimension to all of this that is easy to overlook. Surviving the cold required an enormous body of specialized information: which animals to hunt for the fattiest meat and the warmest fur, how to process a hide so that it retained its insulating properties, how to build a shelter that trapped heat and shed snow, how to recognize the early signs of frostbite and hypothermia in yourself and others before it was too late, how to read the weather to know when a storm was coming and there was still time to prepare. None of this was instinct. All of it was learned, accumulated across generations, taught from the old to the young, held in the collective memory of the group. When a knowledgeable elder died, the group did not just lose a person. It lost a library of cold weather survival knowledge that could not be quickly replaced. This is one of the reasons humans evolved to value and care for their elders, to keep alive the individuals who could no longer hunt or gather, but who carried the knowledge that kept everyone else alive through the winter. Step back and consider the full picture. A tropical animal built for heat, with no fur and thin fat and exposed extremities, walked into the coldest environments on Earth, and not only survived, but thrived. It did this by inventing clothing that carried warmth against the body, by mastering fire as the heart of a heat management system, by eating diets designed to fuel the body's internal furnace, by sleeping close together and sharing the warmth of other bodies, by accumulating and transmitting an enormous body of knowledge about how to defeat an enemy that could not be fought directly, only outsmarted. The cold did not make humans stronger. It made them cleverer. It forced the development of technology, cooperation, and knowledge transmission at a level that no warm environment ever demanded. In a real sense, the cold helped make us who we are. The environments that should have killed us instead sharpened us, because the only way for a tropical animal to survive the ice was to become something no animal had ever been, a creature that could carry its own climate with it, a creature that could think its way into places its body was never built to go. The next time you step out into the cold and pull your coat tighter around you, feeling that small automatic gratitude for the warmth it traps against your body, remember that you are using the single most important survival technology in human history. The coat you are wearing is the direct descendant of the sewn hide garments that let your ancestors walk across a frozen world. The warmth you take for granted was, for almost every human who ever lived, something that had to be built, maintained, and defended every single day against an enemy that never rested and never negotiated. They beat the cold, not by being tougher than it, but by being smarter than it, together, for long enough to produce you. And the tropical animal that should never have survived the ice is now the animal that has walked on every continent, including the frozen ones, carrying its warmth with it everywhere it goes.